So I'm sure you've seen lots of videos on YouTube. The Pocket Notebook universe is exploding. You'll see lots of examples of pocket notebooks, traveler's notebooks, and this thing called Everbook. We even put out a video talking about pocket notebooks specifically. So I want to just take and examine 3 types of note-taking systems intended to be pocketable or at least carryable, and examine their uses, talk about their pros and their cons.
If you stick around to the end, we'll share what we use our pocket notebooks for and what kind we use most frequently.
So welcome back. Once again, this is Mark.
And I'm Jen.
And today we're going to talk about small, portable notebooks.
On Journaling Together.
Yes, thank you. So let's start off with actual pocket notebooks themselves, and we'll talk about the other 2 styles, the other 2 systems afterwards. So starting with sort of the largest, what I would consider a pocket notebook, that's the A6 format. It's the sort of European style or Japanese style format. And these are roughly 4 inches by 6 inches. There's an actual metric number that I don't have off the top of my head. Next, down the size scale would come the more familiar to many of us, the field notes, the moleskins. These are 3.5 by 5.5 inches. And then if you want to even more portable, even more pocketable, we can get down to the mini compositions, which you can find at Walmart. I think you can find them at Dollar Tree and probably a few other places. I think that's roughly equivalent to the A7 size in the ISO standard. So notebooks have been around for a long time. The concept of sort of a portable notebook was started in the 16th century. They were popularized in the 18th century in Britain when they started pre-printing material in these notebooks. And so going back to our notebooks, let's talk about the covers, because that's part of what we're going to talk about today is how do you actually lug them around. So starting with the biggest, again, looking at the A6. Now I'll point out here, and I mentioned this in our other video about pocket notebooks, it's much more difficult to find notebook covers that fit the A6. Perhaps it's easier in Europe or Japan or China. But I found that there are not as many options for the notebooks covers that will fit A6, but they are out there. And we've got an example of a relatively inexpensive one that we believe is true leather. So next, let's talk about the more familiar 3.5 by 5.5 pocket notebook covers. Here, you've got lots of choices for pocket notebooks. This is probably the most common size, most common format. And they're typically constructed usually out of leather or some sort of leather substitute. Often they will have 2 pockets inside. And this is an advantage because if you wanted to, you could actually put two notebooks in there. So it sort of doubles your possibilities right there.
And of course, I'm struggling to get it in there right now. There we are.
Yep. And one thing to note is right now we're mostly talking about the Cahier style, the field note style, where you've just got 48 or maybe at most 64 pages. I'll briefly mention there are much thicker pocket notebooks, but there again you're challenged because many of those thicker notebooks, like Moleskine puts out a 200 plus page notebook, and finding a cover that will fit that without stretching out the leather too much or injuring the notebook cover itself is more of a challenge. So if you stick to the 3.5 by 5.5, 48, roughly 64 page Cahier, you should be gold. Got lots of choices. So talking about covers, there's actually sort of 3 schools of thought I found with pocket notebooks and how to actually carry them. There is the rough and rugged style where you actually don't use a cover. You just take your old field notes. Generally it has to be field notes, I think. And you throw it in your pocket. and maybe you throw a rubber band around it and a pencil or a pen, cheap pen, and that should carry. No need for a cover, just a pocket notebook and a writing tool. The next school of thought is where sort of a very simple cover, where you've got examples of them there. They can have pockets, they cannot have pockets, but often they're going to have some sort of strap or something to kind of keep them together. They're intended to just carry one or at most two pocket notebooks, and maybe they'll have a loop of some sort to carry a writing tool.
This one's even just a passport holder.
Yes.
That we've repurposed.
It happens to be tall for a passport holder, so it will fit a 3.5 by 5.5. And then the third way, which should be mentioned, and I don't have an example of it, we don't have an example of it here, which is the sort of very stylized, very fashionable, decorative covers, often made of plastic, something like vinyl. They'll have lots of adornments. Sometimes they're homemade. I've seen people do that out of paper, and it's really becomes more of a fashion accessory than a utilitarian thing, which is why I don't have any examples of them. I have no need for that, but they are out there, and people there is a cult. We should say cult. There is a
fan base.
There is a fan base.
How's that?
Thank you. There is a fan base for these things. Next, moving on. Oh, so let's talk about the typical usages for a pocket notebook. So probably the most obvious one is going to be as a catch-all. Just I call it a short-term memory. It's just something where you're just going to jot down notes that you want to track throughout your day. You just need a pencil, a pen, and you're writing it and you're creating it as you go. Next, you might want to put a planner in there. I do use one of them as a planner. It's a daily planner or maybe even just a weekly planner. Sketchbook is another obvious example of what you might use it for. So then we're talking probably about plain pages in a notebook, pocket notebook. And maybe again, if you've got a cover with 2 slots and you throw, something for sketching and then something for note taking or catch-all, something like that, that's pretty common. You could sort of kick it up a notch and go into a mini bujo. There's also quite a fan base, and they, Reddit and all sorts of community around folks that like to take the bujo and then scale it down to that form factor, that 3.5 by 5.5 pocket form factor. And there are actually a plethora of uses. One I should point out is if you're a fan of field notes. Draper has, if you look into his history and what has sort of inspired them, some many years ago to create the field notes, was he's a collector of those notebooks that get put out by seed companies, and they were intended for the farmers to have in their field. And they could note, their seeds and crop management and all that kind of thing. So things that you might want to track on a farm, and to put them in their pocket, obviously. So that's sort of, I think, the inspiration, at least part of the inspiration for field notes.
Yeah,
so,
they've even done a movie on that, haven't they?
Yeah,
short film.
Yeah, they showed it at the film festival. So going back historically, I'm sure if you were into collecting, you'd probably find, those sorts of uses.
Well, and let's be fair, field notes people tend to be collectors of field notes as well.
That's true. And obviously, if you get a 2-pocket notebook, you can kind of combine these. You could have a planner and a catch-all, that sort of thing. So the pros, what are the pros for this system? Well, it's probably the lightest weight option out of the 3 systems we're going to talk about here. It is sort of the simplest, lightest way to go. If you just had a very simple leather notebook, or even if you didn't have any notebook yet, there you go. If you're carrying just the pocket notebook and pencil, you really can't get any lighter than that.
I just recommend sharpening your pencil. Yes. Mine is not.
Well, and pro tip, put a protector on that pencil ray.
Pencil caps.
Or if you put it in a pocket, like I always intend to do, it's going to go into your leg. And through your jean pants and ruin them, or your Dockers or whatever you're wearing. Okay. The cons. Oh, I'm sorry. 2 more pros. These are likely the most inexpensive option.
This one probably. Your
Yeah.
bougie $4 notebook
There you
and a
go.
pencil.
Right. So you don't have to invest in a cover. Now, if you want to invest in a cover, again, it's still probably the most inexpensive option because you can find those covers, $10, $15. If you want to do polyurethane leather, you can get them for $5 on eBay or Amazon or your typical places. So not a lot of investment for that. And again, as I mentioned before, a lot of people like to create their covers, like to decorate them. So you've got lots of choices. And the fact that there's such a market for these, you've got lots of choices on pre-made, self-made covers. So the
I'm even,
cons,
I'm
yes,
even looking to switch from one to the other from time to time.
there you go. Because they're so easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the cons? Well, one of the biggest cons right away is you're sort of limited in how much writing you can do. You're limited to at most really 2 pocket notebooks if you're using a two pocketed cover. And most of these pocket notebooks that are going to be comfortable enough to carry are up to maybe 48 or 64 pages. Again, you can carry bigger notebooks, but then you're either going to have to give up the cover and just carry the notebook, or you're just going to have a much thicker notebook sitting in your pocket.
And you may not even be able to find a cover that will hold the thicker notebook, as we
Right.
said.
Yep. Also, they're a little bit more difficult to organize than the other 2 options because you've got 48 pages and you just want to carry the one, but you now want to combine planning, maybe some bujo aspects, and maybe just a catch-all kind of 2 or 3 uses. Well, you're going to have to either live with the fact that that content is going to be scattered across the pages and it won't be grouped, or you'll have to carefully plan ahead and say, well, I'm taking the first 10 pages for planning, say. The next 10 pages are my catch-all, and the remainder are, whatever.
Man, I would go through notebooks so fast if I did everything in one tiny little notebook.
Yeah, there you go. So that is sort of a disadvantage. Is they're small, they're lightweight, but they're not exactly as modular as the other 2 options. And then finally, I think sort of an often overlooked disadvantage is if you like to have pre-printed notebooks, there are lots of options for the other 2 systems that we're going to talk about, but it is much more difficult to find pre-printed notebooks that actually like a
Pre-printed planner type
guided
thing.
planner, or just any kind of format. So if you do decide this system is the system you want to go with, great. It's very lightweight, cheap, but you're going to be doing a lot of the drawing and the setting up of your content yourself. Especially if you want to do, say, the bujo aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so pocket notebooks. Second system that we're going to talk about, traveler's notebooks. So traveler's notebooks, at least the way we understand or we know it, started in 2006 with the Midori Company Limited. Midori, yeah, in 2006. And then shortly after, in 2007, they actually changed the company name to Design Fill, Inc. And then
Is in incorporated?
Okay. Yep. And then they changed the name of the brand from Midori to Traveler's Company in 2014.
Oh my goodness.
So you can find examples of the official, branded versions of the Traveler's Notebook with different names embossed in them, depending on how old the notebook is. So they're very much like a pocket notebook, at least in the pocket notebook cover, because they're typically made of leather, usually thicker leather, and what distinguishes these from, say, the pocket notebooks we just looked at is they are constructed with elastic bands inside that you use to slip your pocket notebooks through, and they keep it and capture the notebook and keep it from sliding out. So you typically would find one or two or three of these bands in your traveler's notebook, you get one or two or three or even more what they call inserts or refills, and you slide them in through the center, and the leather becomes, sort of the holder, and then as you're showing there, typically you'd also have an elastic that kind of keeps it all together. So there is an entire cottage industry of makers and creators who make clones of the original Traveler's Notebook. So Traveler's Notebook, it's just like Kleenex. It can refer to the specific Traveler's Notebook from Midori or from Design Fill or however you want to look at it, or it can refer to just the general concept of essentially just a piece of leather with some elastic straps inside. And here you are not limited to just 2 notebooks. I think you're showing several notebooks in there, and depending on how the Traveler's Notebook is constructed, originally with 2 or 3 elastic bands, you can use elastic bands to band notebooks end to end, spine to spine, and you can expand beyond the number of elastics that you start with. So, for example, if you had just typically one in the branded Traveler's Notebook, you're going to get 1 elastic, but you can, with what they call jump bands, band 2 notebooks together and combine that with a 3rd notebook and end up with 3 notebooks in your Traveler's Notebook. So, and I've seen examples as many as 6 in a single notebook. I'm sorry, 7 in a single notebook. Of course, at that point, I wouldn't call that portable, because that thing was probably 3 inches thick, the one I was seeing. So, which brings me to the second point here, is there are several sizes. The official Traveler's Notebook from Midori, from Traveler's Company, sorry, they come in 2 sizes, what's called Passport and what's called Standard Size. So standard size is essentially a slim A5. Passport size is slightly smaller than what we would call Pocket, slightly smaller than a field notebook's. It is shorter than a field notebook, but as wide as a field notebook. And it is essentially the size of at least a U.S. passport. I don't know how passports are sized in other countries, but it is roughly equivalent to a U.S. passport.
So this is the standard size. This is not a Traveler's brand, but this is standard size, and this is the passport
size.
Passport size.
Yes. Now that's the official brand, the Traveler's Company brand. If you go out into the marketplace, you go on Etsy, Amazon, other places, you find the independent makers, and even the so-called clones. You're going to find at least 2 other sizes. You're going to find
in-between size.
Right. You're going to find a size that's slightly smaller than what they call the standard size. That's actually quite popular. And then you're going to find a size which is slightly bigger than the passport size, which they call Pocket. It's typically called Pocket size. And it is roughly 3.5 by 5.5. It's intended for the field note size.
I think that's what this one is.
Yep. So that was a custom one, I think made in Ukraine. I suspect. I'm not quite sure, but it was a gift, so I'm guessing. Custom made, and it's pocket sized. But it has the same features as the Traveler's Company brand. It has those inner elastic, and it has the elastic band around the outside. So what are the typical uses? So it's pretty much the same as the pocket notebooks, but you've got 2 advantages here. The first is you've got more notebook support. So you're not limited to just 2. As I said, 3 is very common. You can go up to 7, but for every set of quote unquote refills or notebook that you add, you're sacrificing portability because you're making that whole system wider. And it's very modular. So whereas I mentioned before, one of the drawbacks to the Pocket notebook is you've got 48 pages and you've got to decide how you apportion those pages to what function if you're going to have multiple functions in a single notebook. Well, the Traveler's Notebook, it's much less of a problem because you could have one refill that's specific to a particular purpose and another refill that's specific to another purpose. So you could have like a planner refill, pre-printed planner refill, which is hard to get in a pocket size. You could also get those in Passport. They're very common in Passport sizes. And then you could have another one that's, you could have a blank notebook for sketching, and then you could have blank pages, I should say, for sketching, and then you could have another lined notebook for, catch-all or note-taking, journaling.
I like these kind, where you've got pockets that you can add into it.
Yes. That is another advantage, is you've got these accessories that you can add. Pockets, sticker sheets.
Sticker sheets.
Yeah, lots of options. And again, these are designed to be strapped in via those elastic bands. So, what are the cons? Well, they are a bit bulkier than that Pocket notebook. Remember, the Pocket notebook, theoretically, all you really need is a notebook. You don't even really need the pencil or the writing tool. You could have that in your shirt pocket separate, but if you wanted to combine them, very portable. These, still portable, but, if you're going to have 3 or 4 or 5 inserts, you're going to push it out of your pocket, potentially.
And into your purse.
And into your purse, yes.
That's where I carry
Well,
mine.
to be clear, as I'm speaking, I have this concept that I'm trying to keep these things small enough that I could actually carry them literally in my pocket. I understand, yes, for you it's a small purse. In which case you could theoretically go up to that standard size traveler's notebook.
And that's what this is.
And that's what that is. And that could ride in a purse. But then you've added, a pound or 2 or whatever that thing weighs now.
But then there's a bunch of pockets.
Oh, and I neglected to mention too, there's different styles. So many different styles on these traveler's notebooks.
Oh my gosh.
You just showed that coarse grained leather.
Yes, my Moterm.
Yes, Moterm branded. And again, you can go leather, you can go simulated leather, you can go, I see a lot of those with plastic.
Cloth.
Paper, cloth.
People make their own. It's simple enough to take a piece of leather and cut your own.
Yep. 2 more cons real quick. So the name branded traveler's notebook, quite expensive.
Pricey.
Yes, they are pricey.
Quite pricey.
And the more upscale ones are quite expensive, especially compared to the leather, the nice leather pocket notebook covers.
Yeah, the Moterm was not cheap.
Yes. And you've got those elastics. They wear out eventually, but that's a minor inconvenience.
You can buy elastic from a sewing store.
Yes.
To replace it.
Yep.
I think that's what we did here, yes?
Yes. And one other advantage, again, is you can make these very easily. Mm-hmm. You really just need a piece of leather to cut, and then you just need a way to punch the holes in to slip your elastic in. So you could do it without a whole lot of tooling.
And it doesn't even have to be leather. You can use a placemat from the Dollar Tree.
There you go. Okay, so what if you're carrying around a traveler's notebook? You got 3, 4, or even 7 inserts, and you're like, this is just not enough. It's just not enough. What are you going to do? Well, there's our third system, our third option.
There's another option?
There is another option.
Oh my gosh.
And
let me make room for this.
Keep in mind, we're trying to keep the concept here to pocketable things.
Pocketable.
Right. So I mentioned Everbook at the very beginning. So, and we have shared, yes, Everbook. Oh, we have shared the canvas one that we built, that we crafted rather, many months ago. And the concept here, this is sort of the originally sized Everbook, which is A5 sized. And it is sort of an opinionated system in that the original creators intended that it should be, again, very modular, but that there's sort of a flow to it, if you will. The idea is that you keep your project work on the right-hand side. That's the stuff you're going to open day to day. You're going to work in day to day. You maybe have a planner there, that sort of thing. The left-hand side is more for storage, for long-term use, scratch paper, that sort of thing.
She's chunky.
Yes, she is. Well, she's not. That's not meant to be pocketable.
Oh, this isn't your pocket one.
This is not. No,
You have a pocket one?
Hold on. We're
Oh
getting
my
there.
goodness.
We're getting there. So keeping in mind that this is a sort of a system in a sort of framework, if you will, for it, you can scale upwards. So here we have.
Oh
an
my
example
gosh,
of
it's so heavy.
It gets bigger. Again, not pocketable, but it's the same concept. That one actually mostly just
Let me put
planners.
this one on top of it so you can see.
That's a B5.
Oh, it doesn't even
the
fit
leather
in
one.
the screen. Oh my gosh. It's big. Okay.
And that's an example of how inexpensively you could make these, because that's just a piece of very inexpensive leather I got from Hobby Lobby. And you don't even have to cut holes if you don't want to for elastics. Now we did with this, because typically you will find these with an elastic band that's intended to wrap around and keep the Everbook intact.
You have 9 books in here, and one of them is this big ol', what is this, moleskin?
Yes.
Is
Planner.
big ol' moleskin.
Yeah. That's acting more
My
as a
goodness.
sort of trapper keeper.
Trapper keeper.
Trapper
Ooh,
keeper,
child
yeah.
of the 80s.
Real old school. Real old school. But it's really just that is really just hanging on to most of my planners. So let's bring it back to pocket notebooks. You can scale up and you can scale down.
Oh, good. The down one looks a lot
Yes.
lighter.
So,
Oh my gosh.
here's an example of the same system,
know,
the same
it's-
concept. Yes, though it is intentionally bulky right now,
It's
because
still
I've got it
chunky.
loaded to show you that all the different kinds of things. So here I want to look at it real quick.
On the inside, I can show
Yeah,
off the inside.
yeah.
Okay.
They're all blank books. This is just an example. This is a prototype. Now, for the record, there's another channel who has a lot of Everbook content. I wrote it down, and he demonstrated a pocket Everbook. I think it actually may be slightly smaller, maybe passport sized, that a viewer had sent him, and so he has already shown this. For the record, I had made this quite some time ago, and
Were you
shouldn't claim it.
first?
No, I'm not claiming that so much. I'm just saying that this is it's still a developing concept.
All right.
So the idea here is, again, I'm showing some examples of how I have used it. And I've used the other one, the canvas one, and not only do I have that material, those notebook type of materials, but I've also stuffed, some scratch paper in there, scratch pad.
Oh, this is even
the rocket,
the reusable rocket notebook.
rocket notebooks, yes.
Indestructible field
Yeah,
books.
and that's why I've got the erasable pen in there.
And I see you've got these kind of attached to each other.
Yep.
And just a piece of paper, right?
Yes.
Why not? Oh, this is cool.
So one feature not showing here is that I do have in the other one is another concept from the Everbook is the concept of again, project work, typically being on the right hand side, and you use folders a lot, and folders are really nothing more than just a piece of cardstock, and you can nest them, of course, and you can group your papers together inside folders. So we're no longer bound by some sort of bound notebook. I can actually carry loose paper in there. And that's very difficult, if not impossible, to do with the other two systems. So
Say no more.
yes, exactly. So you're kind of getting ahead of me here, but that's good. So along those lines, you could then see I had a piece of paper in there folded in half. So as it turns out, for the pocket notebook sized, using the U.S. letter size, I could take a U.S. letter. I could theoretically print my own content, project it onto a piece of U.S. letter, although it should work fine for an A4, sorry, and fold it up. I could cut that into loose paper, or leave it folded. It might work just folded. Or I could cut it in certain ways so that it opens more like a notebook. But it's very, very customizable in that way. And again, I only have to carry as many sheets as I need. So I've loaded this thing up
You
with...
don't need a half an inch of scratch paper with you.
No, I don't.
That grabbed too much.
Yeah. Index cards would be great too. Yeah. So, you're only going to carry what you really need. So you carry a little bit of scratch paper, and then more often than not, you're just going to be carrying loose paper, not necessarily notebooks. So what I do carry in my canvas notebook, the one I actually carry around with me right now most of the time, is I do carry a couple of notebooks, but I do carry a lot of loose paper and one of those rocket notebooks.
In these little folder things.
Yep. So and I've got them nested. So it's like, here's my projects folder, and then I've got my 3 or 4 projects that I work on day to day or week to week.
Makes sense.
And that is a function of the Everbook sort of concept, not necessarily the Everbook physical layout. But the layout is very simple, as you can see. It's just an extended, it's a longer traveler's notebook. It's just a piece of leather that wraps around your content. And a strap is not absolutely mandatory, but it's really probably something you should put on there.
I made it chunkier.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, that's an advantage to it too. Is if you do make it chunky, you just kind of you expand it.
Just get a bigger piece of elastic.
Yeah. So there's no commercial implementation of the pocket-sized Everbook. There are a couple of manufacturers, a couple of leather makers, I should say, that sell very nice examples of the standard size Everbook, the A5 size.
A5 or composition?
No, A5.
It's A5, okay.
Yeah. I don't know of anybody that makes the composition size, and I don't know of anybody that makes the pocket size yet.
Yet.
And as I already mentioned, I wrote it down. I think the one he's got is a passport size. There's no reason you couldn't do that. The only challenge there is getting, if you are going to use notebooks, pre-printed notebooks, is getting them in that size. They're harder to find in America, in the U.S., but they do make them. We have found them at Daiso, but that's because Daiso is carrying a lot of Japanese stationery. So Daiso is full of ISO-sized paper. Although that's changing now for the worse. Because they're getting replaced by the U.S. made stuff. Yeah. They're losing all the good Japanese stationery. But that's neither here nor there. Okay, so what are the advantages? Well, I would say as far as uses go, anything you can probably do in a traveler's notebook or a simple pocket notebook, you could do in an Everbook. So if you want to just carry a pocket notebook or two, you could do that in the Everbook. And in that case, it's really nothing more than a very well-wrapped pocket notebook cover. But if you are into carrying multiple systems, as you might do in a traveler's notebook, then, right?
How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll?
Yeah. So arguably it's the most versatile of the 3 systems. Again, I'm not limited to the number of things. I can put things in there like pockets. I can put things in there like several pens, rulers, lots of things. And if you're into craft work and you want to make one yourself, which a lot of people do, you could build it a little bit, create it a little bit taller than 3.5 or 5.5. So maybe make it a 6-inch width, and you create a little bit sort of a yap around your.
Ah.
So you're protecting your contents even more.
So a yap,
Yeah.
like with this notebook, this would be the yap at the top and the bottom that would,
Yeah.
if you wrapped it around, it would protect the edges.
Yeah. So you're getting slightly more protection. Plus, you're covering those edges with leather. So I think of the three systems, it's probably the most protecting. So what are the cons? Well, I think you just demonstrated one of them. The potential for bloat here is pretty big. It's pretty bad for Traveler's Notebook, but at some point you reach a limit where the leather will no longer wrap around the inserts. You get up to 7 inserts, and that thing is, the notebooks are starting to peek out from behind the leather. Well, you got a lot more leeway here, and so the temptation to load it up, as I have done here, is greater. And as I've already pointed out, if you want to go with a Pocket Everbook at this point in time, you're going to have to make it.
This won't so much fit in your pocket, though.
No, it won't, but I could make that fit in my pocket. Again,
You'd
that's
have
a
to take
prototype.
a few things out.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a really nice piece of red leather. Really nice. Did not get that at Hobby Lobby. And I'm waiting until I kind of make sure I've got the right size. And I'm going to make another one of these.
Make one for your wife.
There you go. So that's it. Those are the 3 major systems.
So what's your favorite?
So
What one
what's
do
my
you
favorite?
use? Wait, what's your favorite and what one do you use most often?
So I actually don't use the Pocket Everbook at this point in time. I use regular carry in my pocket every day. I carry 2 things. I carry in my left pocket a passport-sized traveler's notebook
Ooh.
that I made myself.
This is pretty. It's navy blue.
Navy blue, yeah.
Oh, and I like what I see in the top here.
Yeah.
I'm peeking, but I know that this is your everyday, so I don't
In
want
it,
to.
so in it, I keep a pre-printed daily diary. Travelers Company sells these. They're called, I think, a monthly diary. They're essentially 30 days of, planning pages.
Is that the red one here?
Yeah, it's the red one in the front. You can open it. It's not much filled out right now. We're at the beginning of December.
Oh.
And then in the back, I keep just sort of a general notes page. And then the rest of it is mostly just my wallet.
So that's your general notes page.
Wallet and some typical kind of everyday carry things like paper clips and
a really nice pencil.
yes. And that serves as my wallet, my planner, and then for catch-all, what I call the walking memory is that.
Walking memory instead of
Walking
working
memory,
memory.
yes.
I like that.
And that's because as I'm getting older.
And you've got a nice. I don't want to.
Yes, and that's
This one's pretty much full, huh?
Yeah.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to open
just
that
about
one up.
ready to swap out that notebook, and that notebook lasted me just over a month. So.
Okay.
And I just keep the one in there because that particular cover is not really designed for 2, and that's because the feature about it that I liked is that it keeps the pen loop
Right
is
in here.
inside, so you're totally encasing the pen. Because I can't tell you now how many accidents I've had where I've had pens stab me or ruin pants because
Yeah.
I've kept them in an outside loop. And fountain pens are pretty much now no-nos for me in the pocket.
Yeah. The laundress of the house has declared she's done trying to get ink out of the pockets.
Right. Now, it is possible that I could eventually jump to the Pocket Everbook, and that's because I would combine those 2 or 3 features. The problem I'm facing is how thick it's going to get. Yes. It certainly won't be as thick as my prototype here.
At least here you've got one on one side and one on the other. And if you actually moved one of these books into this one, it would almost balance you.
Yes. No, and I certainly could. And I actually did do that for a little while, many months ago. I did have a different pocket notebook that I did have two. I'm sorry, pocket notebook cover. I did have two pocket notebooks in, and so I had one less in the traveler's notebook. But I like that particular one because it's so soft. So
This
I've
one?
grown an attachment to it. Yes.
The brown one, not the black.
Yes,
Oh,
the
okay,
brown
not the
one.
blue one.
So
So soft.
it is so soft. So I've got a sort of an unhealthy, unnatural, unreasonable attachment to it. So,
I don't think that's unreasonable at all if it brings you joy.
yeah, but you're right. I could easily balance that a little more if I put two of those notebooks in a single one on my right side, and that would make the traveler's notebook on the left side that
Is
much
this
thinner.
splotch a mishap from a fountain pen?
Yes.
Yes, it
One of the
is.
many.
Oh, boy. All right. I actually carry two pocket notebooks,
Yes.
and I carry them in my purse, and that's in addition to the big old chunky yellow one that you saw a little while ago. I
So
carry,
three total.
yes, I have three total, but the other one's not pocket.
Not a pocket. I see.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So this one goes in my purse. It is not a pocket, and
Right. But it is a
it's
traveler's notebook.
very thick, but it is a traveler's notebook.
Standard size, it looks like.
Yes, and it's the only traveler's notebook that I carry right now.
And you keep your planning things in there, right?
Yeah, and part of the reason it's so thick right now is because it's December. So this is the current year, and this is January next 2026. And so this one will disappear, and then I'll just have what's back here in here.
One of the advantages of the traveler's notebook. You
Yeah,
swap them in and out.
just swap it out. But this is this one, although it goes into my purse when I leave the house, it is with me in the house, away from home, anywhere I go. I always have this one with me. And I might switch out the cover soon now that I've gone and found all my other covers. I may try this one for a little while.
Yeah.
When you're reminded of the things you have. But my notebook, I actually set it up so you could open it up and see how I actually use it. My notebook, I keep a little set of sticky notes here. I've got some index cards, and I've got a calendar from Field Notes, and I keep these little brass page things on there. I have a flat pen just in case. And then I just write down notes of things that I need to try to remember. So it is just my memory. Here's my grocery list. Here's my Thanksgiving grocery list. Here's the things I needed to do before I could leave for Thanksgiving. So, and then there's just a few pages back here. So, more packing to get for this past weekend and such like that. So I carried that. And then the other one that I carry with me these days, this one has a very specific purpose. This one is, more personal that I can't share, but it's one of these mini comps, and is currently managing some health issues for a family member. So it goes with me because I never know when I'm going to get a phone call saying, hey, this is what's going on. And I've got to fill something out in there so I know what's going on.
So it's sort of a reference.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So I can always answer questions and keep information and data in there. So these are the two pocket notebooks that go with me in addition to my big old chunky traveler's notebook that goes with me everywhere. And this one goes with me the most places. So that's what I use it for.
Yep. Well, I hope this has been helpful, sort of sorting these three things out. I would say look out, keep an eye out for the Pocket Everbook. It may catch on, maybe. Once people realize the expandability of it. And maybe we'll get some nice leather makers that will make them for us. So, once again, this is Mark.
And I'm Jen.
And we are still journaling together.